Yeah. In this video, nope. Oh my God. Oh. What is up, everyone? My name is Max Currie, and I'm the creator of Death Casset Games. In our last video, we went over adding some movement properties to our game Requiem-Mortem, which is Death Casset Games' first project. In this video, we're going to be adding additional movement properties by interacting with the environment. We're going to be creating a ladder component so that our character can move up and down on the Z-axis to climb walls. But first, roll the intro. Alright guys, we are in UE, our Unreal Engine. We're in edition 5.3. In our last video, we went over this addition down here of this ramp and the platform in the background because our movement component allows us to move into the background when not traveling in a normal space. But in this video, we're going to be creating a ladder. So let's get into it. First thing we want to do is open up our character blueprint. So you might remember that we have our movement set up like this. But what we want to do this time is we want to add a couple of Boolean or true-false variables. So we're going to start with on ladder. All right. And then we're going to add another one for near ladder. We're going to compile and save. And now what we want to do is we want to create a new actor that's going to represent our ladder. So we're going to go into our exterior. We're going to do blueprint class actor. Name it with our naming convention. All right. Just like our movement components that allow us to move into the background, we're going to do the same thing we did there by coming over to our components grid and adding a box collision. Not a backs, a box. All right. Now, with our box selected, just like last time, we're going to scroll all the way down in our details pane, and we're going to hit on component begin overlap. It's going to navigate to our event grid. We're going to reselect our box, and we're going to come down to component end overlap. We're going to add that in there too. Now, what we want to do here is we want to set the variables we just created. So to be able to do that, we're going to have to cast to our character. So BPRM, we're looking for character. We're going to duplicate that for the on-end overlap. And now coming off of the character node that we've got here, we're going to come off and we're going to set on near ladder. So this is basically saying once we start overlapping, we are in fact near the ladder. Now on end overlap, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set near ladder. We're going to leave that unchecked so that it's false. But we also want to drag off again, and we want to get on ladder so that we automatically turn off that variable in case anything happens. And now what we want to do is we want to get our character movement. So all the way at the bottom, get character movement. And we're going to drag off of this and set character movement. We want movement mode, actually. So we're going to set movement mode. There we go. And we're going to set it to walking. You'll see why in a minute. We're going to change the movement mode for when we are interacting with the ladder. So we're basically saying if we're not near the ladder, change the movement mode back to walking. All right, we're going to compile and save that. And now we want to go back to our player character. So now that we're here, we need some way to trigger on the ladder. We can overlap that box that we created for the collision, but we need something to be able to interact with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our content drawer. Now I use this off of the third person template. So we're going to use, there's a folder here for input. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into our actions folder and we are going to create a new input action. And I'm going to name it interact. If I could type. All right. Now inside the parent folder, the input, there's this IMC default. And this is an input mapping context. And what this does is it basically maps all of our input actions to their buttons and what they do. So we're going to assign IA interact, which is our new one. And yeah, I think that's good. It's assigned to E on the keyboard and it's assigned to the face button right. I think that's good. So we'll leave that there. But now that we have that in our character blueprint, we're going to search for interact. And we're looking for the enhanced action event that we just created. Let's go ahead and open that. Okay, so now we have to do some conditional statements to make sure that everything happens the way that it's supposed to. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get a branch. So I'm going to hold B and click to get this branch. And so this is a true false based off of, it's a conditional statement of what to do if our condition comes back as true or false. So what we're going to start with is near ladder. All right, we're near the ladder. So when it started, this is basically when we hit the interact button, it's going to ask, are we near the ladder? And if we aren't, then we don't need to do anything. But if we are, we want to get another branch. And we want to ask, are we on the ladder? And if we are on the ladder, we want to set. I'm going to do it this way. So if we're on the ladder and we hit the interact button, we're going to set on ladder to false. And if we're not on the ladder, but we're near it, when we hit the interact button, we're going to set it to true. So it's basically saying if you're near the ladder, if you're on the ladder, get off the ladder. If you're near the ladder, get on the ladder. Okay? Now, if we're getting on the ladder, so this would be the false, we're going to come off here and we're going to set, we need to get our character movement. So we'll drag it in here. And then off of this, we're going to set movement, whoops, can't see, movement mode. So we're going to set our movement mode. And we're on the ladder at this point. So we're going to set our movement mode to flying. So typical walking movements are based off of the X and the Y on the ground. So it's in and out and side to side. Flying allows us to move up on the Z axis. So we're going to set it to flying and we're going to duplicate this. And we're going to drag it up here. And so if we're on the ladder and we disengage by hitting the interact button, I'm going to change this to falling so that we fall off the ladder. All right. And that should be it for the interaction. But we need to change our movement as well. So this is what we had last time. So we're going to grab all of this and we're going to move this off to the side. Disconnect these. And what we want to do here is we want to get a branch. And we're going to do the same thing with our conditions. We're going to see if we are on the ladder. So I need to move this out of the way. Let's move this up. Okay. So if we're on the ladder, our movement can just be, or if we're not on the ladder, sorry, excuse me. If we're not on the ladder, we can set our movement to normal. And we can drag off of our X. Clean this up a little bit. And if we are on the ladder, we need to change our movement type. So we're going to duplicate, add movement input. And now what we want to do is we want to define this world direction. So we're going to get control rotation. And we're also going to need to get our up vector. So, and you just want the vector. You don't want it transformation from anything else. So we just want the up vector. So split these struct pins like that. And let's connect our rotation on the Z. And let's tie that into our world direction. So this is basically going to define our player's rotation and the direction that they're in. And we need to scale the movement based off of the up and down keys or the forward and backward key. So W, which represents up or forwards, and S is down or backwards. We're going to scale off of those to control the up or down while we are on the ladder. That should work. So let's go ahead and test this. Done a lot of work really quickly. Let's go back to our environment and drag our ladder in. I'm going to reshape it real quick. Make it real tall. All right. Should be good to go. So we can test. All right. So we know that we're in our collision. And right now we can still move into the background like we planned in the original. And now we're going to hit our interact key, which is E. So now we are interacting, and we can go up. And we can go down. And if we're on the ladder and we hit the E key, we disengage and we fall. So it works perfectly. Now I'm not going to go over adding in any of the animation. I'm strictly working on the systems for the game before I get into any details. We will be going over a lot of that stuff later, but right now we're prepping for prototyping. And then we're going to be finalizing our prototype and doing some of our polishing for the demo. But there's also one thing I wanted to fix while we were here. So to be able to move into the background, the way that we set it up is that we have the ability to move using the W and the S key. However, when we're not in the collision that allows us to move into the background, we are constrained to a plane. So we can't move. So I'm going to fix that. So we have this section here allows us to move in the background. But I want this to be conditional. I don't want this to operate unless we meet certain conditions. So we're going to need another branch. And from that branch, what we really need is we need our character movement, because we need to reference it. And then we're going to come off of that and do get constraint. So we're looking for get constrained to plane. It's a variable set up specifically in our character's movement. So we're going to get that. And we're going to tie that in as the condition of our branch. So if the plane is constrained, this movement is not allowed. And if the plane is not constrained, it is allowed. I'm going to move this down. All right. Compile. And we'll see. So now as I'm running, I cannot move. I'm not getting any kind of feedback or input from the W or the S key. I can still move left and right, and I can jump. And now that I'm in this hallway, I can move into the background because the plane is no longer constrained. And I can climb my ladder. All right, perfect. All right, guys, that's all I got for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Death Casset Games. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.